Hello, welcome to the Baron's Game Room. I'm Aaron as always. Sorry it's been a few weeks. You know the usual. My family's been home on my shooting days, so I haven't been filming. But hey, they're gone today. I'm able to film. And I wanted to do this video a few weeks ago where it would have been very relevant, but I still think it's pretty relevant, which is rare for my channel. Now, those in the board game space are probably aware of the return of a certain classic war game. That's right, today I want to talk about the return of HeroScape, the new Age of Annihilation master set and two-player set. I got these in a few weeks ago because I had pre-ordered them way back when, and yeah, I just want to give you guys my little thoughts on them. Now, for those of you who are unaware, HeroScape is a very family-friendly war game released by Hasbro back in, I think, like 2004. Basically, it's got all the basics of standard wargaming, but, you know, distilled down to just sort of some simple stuff that kids can play and all that. It was sort of focused at casual players and kids and all that, where basically every piece unit just has some movement it can move in a turn, it has some range as far as it can attack, and then you just roll some basic attack dice compared to the target's defense dice and see if you land some hits. If you do, mark them with some damage. When they're all, you know, capped out, they die. Simple stuff, right? You know, not having to bring in like measuring tapes or anything for Warhammer and all that. Just sort of a simplified thing of that sort of stuff. The two things HeroScape was probably best known for are, one, its pre-painted, decent-looking minis you would get in all your expansions and main games and all that, as well as these interlocking hexagonal tiles that it came with in a variety of sizes and shapes and types. These are like stone walkway ones, but you also had some grassy ones, some lava ones, some sand ones, water ones, all kinds of stuff. And these were a really popular hit. In fact, I think a lot of people use these for games outside of HeroScape and all that. But yeah, the minis were pretty decent and all that, and for back at the time, it was all insanely inexpensive. The original master set sold for like $50 and came with 30 of those miniatures of varying size, some really big, some smaller. But yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everyone who collects any game of minis these days knows if you're getting 30 minis, you're going to be paying way over $50 for things, especially with all those plastic hexagonal tiles that he's got on. Like, that's a crazy good deal. So after whatever black magic or probably just underpaying workers in China they did to make that, it went on for a few years and eventually died out. They end up not necessarily reviving it, but a few years later, actually several years later, they re-implemented pretty much all of it into this game called Arena of the Planeswalkers. It was a Magic the Gathering, like, wargaming spin-off. You added some new magic mechanics for, like, that version, but the basics of it were still just HeroScape. Then it died off again for several years until the return of a certain other classic board game, HeroQuest. That's right, Hasbro teamed up with Avalon Hill to re-release the old HeroQuest game. They had a re-release of the original set, they've been re-releasing several of the old expansions, they've been making new expansions, and it's been, I think, a pretty big hit. I know I personally went all in on the original HasLab pre-order stuff. I've bought pretty much everything since. I think right now I do need to catch up and buy that Jungle expansion that's been out, but otherwise, I've been on top of all of it, and been a huge fan of it myself. Maybe I should have done a video like this way back when I got that, but hey, that's said and done now. Let's go on to HeroScape. Not long after the success of the HeroQuest campaign on HasLab and all that, Hasbro decided to team up with Avalon Hill again to try and re-release HeroScape. And it went horribly. If you didn't see any of this, I'll give you the quick on it. Basically, they had one large-ass master set. That's it. There was no other options to it, no expansions. Just one humongous master set with a lot of minis and all that had no cheaper option. It was like a $200 at least or something like that to buy into HeroScape. So if you were new to this thing, if you weren't someone who's loved it forever and knew what you were getting into and wanted to try the game out, sorry, it sucks to suck. There's really no cheaper option for you. You had to pay $200 to get in ground floor for this, period. That's it. Also, yeah, it was touted as being completely backwards compatible with all the old HeroScape stuff, but none of the minis were painted. It was all unpainted minis. This went bad for them. They did not reach their goal. They did not get to fund it and make what they were making. So it all went under for a little while, and we didn't have to wait too much longer, thankfully, until we get to now situation where a little while back, several months ago, maybe a year, I can't remember exactly at this point, you hear the rumblings and the announcement that Hasbro is now teaming up with Renegade Games to re-release HeroScape. When the pre-orders finally went up several months ago, I was on it quick because now, by the way, I did not get on the original HasLab with the Avalon Hill because I was not going to paint all those minis. I'm not a mini painter, sorry. That's not what I do. Now it was going to have 2 different versions. There was going to be the master set and the 2-player set, which meant there was a cheaper buying option for those who didn't want to jump in on a huge big set. That's great. And they also offered 2 versions of every one of those things. They offered painted and non-painted mini versions. So it's amazing. Like, they actually listened to people and their complaints. People didn't want, a lot of people at least, like me, did not want unpainted minis. HeroScape's kind of known for its painted minis. So thankfully, they listened, they gave us that option. They still gave you the cheaper option of unpainted ones. If you wanted to paint up your minis, you can now buy a big set, you can now buy a smaller set, you can buy the smaller set first, come with the bigger later. They listened. It's amazing. Holy crap. But yeah, I've got that in now, and let's talk about them, because I have some feelings. I will say, before we go too much further, I am happy with it, guys. Don't come at me saying like I'm just being an asshole here. I'm happy with my purchase, but it doesn't mean I don't have some critiques. So let's do a little compare and contrast here. The original HeroScape Master Set came out for $50 and had 30 painted minis, whereas the new one was like $120, I think, for 20 painted minis. I will say right at the back, this is not a complaint for me. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we all understood that Hasbro was getting away with some sketchy stuff to put the game out for as cheap as they did. That was never going to happen in modern times. Totally okay with that. 20 painted minis, $120, all the plastic terrain tile stuff. Well worth it in my opinion. Again, you could have bought the 2-player set if you wanted a cheaper buying option, painted or unpainted. I think this was like 40 unpainted and 60 painted, so about the price of the original one, with like 6 or 8 minis. Now, the game is touted as being fully backwards compatible with old HeroScape stuff, and functionally that is 100% correct. Functionally, there's no reason any of the new stuff can't work with your old stuff. The worst thing I've found is the tiles don't fit together perfectly. Let's see. The new tiles are pretty much almost identical to the original ones. Their colors are almost the exact same. On the camera here, you might be able to tell maybe just a little bit of a slight difference in the darker and lighter, but that's just probably new and old stuff. I think the biggest difference were the sand tiles were fairly different-ish color. One's like tan, the other one's pretty white. Anyway, we're getting off track here. For the most part, this set fully functions perfectly fine. They look almost identical. They look pretty much the exact same. I did have a problem when I first pulled them out of the box of them fitting together kind of roughly. Sometimes I had trouble with the newer pieces like fully locking in and like going all the way down with interlocking the other ones. They kind of stick up a little bit. But actually, it seems like since I've packed them away, they've kind of settled in a little better. And they're firm because they're new and all that, but they seem to sink in better than they had day one. So that's actually an improvement. That I was going to say, hey, they kind of stick up a little sometimes, but no, it seems like that might not be a problem anymore. All the other components, the shields you use for turn markers, the dice you use and all that, all pretty much right in line with the originals, except for the glyphs, which I'll sort of wrap into this next thing, in that with the new series, they're going with a little bit of change in art direction, in that they're kind of going for a graphic design direction, and they're going in sort of a minimalist design style. Maybe it was a cost-cutting thing, I don't know, but they kind of went with minimalist design for their graphic design. I'll show you. There are these things called glyphs of the game, these little tiles you place in the field and you flip over and they have various effects. You can see from the back they are almost identical. There's a little texture on this one the others don't have. And then you flip them over to see their sign. This is the old style, and this is the new style. See what I mean? They've kind of gone with a more simplistic view. All the old ones have like a full art little piece on them, and all the new ones just sort of use a black icon. It's fine. These look a little nicer. I probably saved them a little money. It functions perfectly fine. There's also a good bit of change on the army cards. I don't have anything to compare with these ones because I don't have any new green army ones yet, and this, I believe, is a whole new army altogether, so there's none of this in the old set. But you can see with the old and new, sometimes it's pretty significant. They kind of drop the orange entirely for this guys go full purple. These ones look pretty dead on. This one, they just switched the colors a little bit, being like a grayish blue, which is kind of weird. Decided to change white to blue. I don't really like that they did this. The backgrounds are different colors on some of these, as well as they shrunk this whole box down a little bit, which makes it a little awkward looking. And they removed the lines that separated the traits, which is, Oh, you may have also noticed that they went from using images of the mini itself to just this art, which seems a little weird to me because I would personally think that taking a picture of a mini would be cheaper than doing unique art for every single army and character, whatever. But hey, whatever. Maybe they just didn't want to show you like a painted mini since you're able to paint them how you want. I don't know. Whatever. I think this is the biggest example of my complaint that I kind of mentioned over here is on the old cards, it was always a black background behind the little silhouette, but on the new ones, it's kind of different for each army. And some of them, like this one, I think make the outline of the silhouette a little hard to see as opposed to always being on the black. That just seemed like a better choice to me. Like I mentioned again, I think the lines are a little better. I do understand making this box bigger. That totally makes sense. You know, having more room for those makes a whole lot of sense. But shrinking that looks, again, like I said, looks a little awkward. So there's some decisions I'm okay with. Some I've got some complaints. They also kind of updated all these, which is fine, whatever, I guess. Anyways, yeah, just the new graphic design. And now on to the grand finale of the minis, which I'm sure you guys have been waiting like 10 minutes for. The minis to me are a bit of a mixed bag in that they do, in general, look great, and some of them have a lot of really great small details on them and all that. But there's some that just kind of have a little bit of weird painting issues. And it's not like the old one was known for being great on any of this, but I don't know. I feel like the issues I found this one are a little different. Like, see, these are the 3 Sergeant Drakes. I think that looks great, plenty detailed enough. Again, the next printing of him, getting some pretty decent small details on his arm and all that. And then you have the new one here. His face is all gray. I think it's supposed to be painted, but I think they just forgot to paint that. But otherwise, I mean, he looks fine enough. You can see they've kind of kept some of the characters around, like the main Valkyrie here. And I admit, her first face looks a little awkward. Her second one looks a little better. And then her newest one. This looks very cool, for sure. But this is actually one I had to have them resend me. If I had done this video right back when I fresh got this, you would have seen the mispainted one, which I still have sitting over here. Yeah. So this is the original one I got in. They accidentally mispainting like half of the Tiger's helmet over here. And I showed them that, and they were nice to send me new one, so thank you, Renegade, for that. One thing I kind of noticed between these two is this older one also seems to be lacking a bit of a black wash that the wings for this one have. See, those wings details seem to stick out a little more. So, yeah, it just seems like there's a little bit of quality control issues maybe on some of their mini painting and all that. Some, like new ones like this one, are definitely crazy detailed that we would have never gotten on the old ones whatsoever. I think this is a pretty good example of it too. So there's some parts that are definitely like kind of improvements or modern improvements, but I mean, look at these old ones. In my opinion, I think a lot of these look really great, and I don't really think they needed much improving and all that. This is a comparison. Now, this is a complaint I have because I'm a big Morrow player. The Morrow are one of my favorite things to play, and the old ones are these sort of meaty, just look like skinless monster guys. But the new Morrow they gave us, they're still around. That's great, but it just kind of looks like a zombie now. They've made it weird yellow and green. So that's certainly a complaint I had, that my Morrow looks more zombie-like and less meaty alien-like. Yeah, I don't know. So, no huge complaints here. They generally look fine. One thing you might notice is all the old ones have this standard base that the model is like glued down into, whereas with the new guys, it's just part of them. So they had to paint the bottom too. The bottom is painted brown on all these or whatever, which sometimes leaves some focus. I'm not going to see like that gray there where they couldn't quite get around his foot well. So that's a bit of an annoyance. But again, nothing too major. Just differences in the process, I guess. So again, some of the new ones I think look really great. I think these two are fantastic examples of like improving the game. Some of the rest of them look pretty on par, and some have a few little annoyances that are just changes in how they do it are different. It's hard to say if there's any better or worse. I think in general I like the old ones a little better, but the new ones, again, functionally are going to work perfectly fine. I will say this guy is crazy. I think this was probably the biggest one you got originally. and he's pretty great, one of the old ones, but they decided to really up that with this just unwieldy huge guy. And yeah, I mean, he's a great example, I think, of a lot of the details. You know, I can show you some old wings and all that in the game, and they're wings, sure, but the new wings really feel like they've got more detail than the old ones here, for sure. These wings are very small details on those, so that's definitely an improvement to the process and all that. Although, you might have been able to see from the, not just pictures, but like I don't want to dig it out right now, but there was an image of a painted version of him, and they're definitely using much better painted versions of these for their pictures, which is a little annoying, but yeah, whatever. This guy is huge and massive and pretty sick. So again, a bit of a mixed bag in that I'm a little annoyed that the detail seems to be up, but the painting quality seems to be down a little bit. And even then, the detail doesn't seem to be like that massively up. So whatever, it's still all reasonably priced. They all still look good enough. It's all still going to look perfectly fine on my board. So in the end, I'm still very happy with it, even if I have my little complaints. Wow, this is easily got to be the longest video I've ever made. Thank you for sticking around this long. If you are still here, if you're not, you know, screw you, I guess. I don't know. You can't hear what I'm saying. You don't know what I'm talking bad about you. Anyway, let's go on. HeroScape, I'm a big fan of it. Love HeroScape. The new stuff, I think I have my little complaints on, but hey, I'm nostalgic, you know? What are board gamers if not nostalgic? Or 90s kids, man, heck, I'm guilty of that too. So yeah, of course, I wish it came out being just a dead-on recreation of my old one. Absolutely. I wish the minis looked just like the old stuff, just painted as well, all the graphic design was exactly the same. Of course I would love that. I would love it to just seem like it never went away. It's just all of a sudden back. But hey, whatever. None of it's breaking my experience, right? Like the unpainted minis would have. There's no way I was ever going to have unpainted minis. But giving people who want the option to paint that option, fantastic. Giving those of us who want the painted versions what we want, fantastic. It all looks good enough. It's going to look great on the board. Again, all the pieces are functionally there. All the way the cards work. If the graphic design is a little different or the glyphs are a little different, none of it's going to change the way it plays. It's going to look just slightly different, which is slightly annoying. Whatever. No big deal. I'm very happy with this purchase. As my little nitpicky as I was in this, I'm so happy HeroScape is back. Before I go, I'll show you guys off all the new minis real quick, just so y'all can get a decent little look at those guys. There you go. So, after that long video, if you're a new fan looking to get into HeroScape, or sorry, a new player wanting to become a new fan of HeroScape, or if you're an old HeroScape fan just wanting more HeroScape, then personally, my opinion is adding the new HeroScape Age of Annihilation sets to your existing set are definitely fair and approved, guys. Get you some more awesome HeroScape.